Hello and welcome to a very English craft room and another video in the scrapbooking series. This scrapbooking page was for a challenge by the Scrap Squad Facebook page, and it was a series of challenges called the 12 Days of Christmas, this being the first day of Christmas, so day 1. I've titled this page Christmas Dance Memories, using photographs from our dance school's Christmas dinner dance last year. So firstly, I pulled out my box with Christmas papers in it and Christmas embellishments and all sorts of bits and pieces like that were Christmas related. The page that was used for inspiration from Scrap Squad had a white background, so again I decided I would do that too, and it's something I've done quite a lot of recently, whereas in the past I haven't. I also decided that I would try and use a doily, as if I remember rightly, again there was one of those in the original page. So just sorting through bits and pieces here to see what I might want to use and putting away those I don't, or those I definitely knew I wasn't going to use. And then just getting myself a little bit sorted out. So the first piece of paper I chose was a scrap of green, gold and red stripe that I'd used for something else previously, and it was a good size for using on this, and I decided I was going to stick it down onto this Christmas themed red tissue paper. I know I've mentioned it before, but this little tool that I'm using to take the backing off the double-sided tape is actually from a dental kit from one of the pound shops. There are plenty of official scrapbooking tools available for you to use that would do the same job, but I'm all for saving a few pennies where I can. I decided that I was going to ink around the edges of this piece of paper just to make it stand out a little bit from the background. So this is some distress ink from Tim Holtz. Sometimes when I'm doing this I do seem to get in a bit of a mess and get the ink all over my fingers and over the paper, so I'm trying to let it dry first before it touches much else. Oh, there was a piece of wool stuck to my rotary cutter for some reason. I think it was left over from making the pom-pom robins. If you want to see how to make those, there is a video available on my channel for that. So I'm lucky enough to go to a dance school where the people who run it have some connections with Strictly Come Dancing, so quite often the entertainment at the Christmas dinner dance is actually somebody from Strictly Come Dancing, and this year it was Johannes and Nancy. So carefully taking the tape off the back of the tissue paper now can be a little bit fragile when doing that, and it took me a little bit of time to get it positioned in the right place, trying to get it as central as possible, so I'd speeded that bit up so it didn't take up a lot of the video. So I had selected a few Christmassy themed washi tapes, so I was just trying to decide which ones to put where. So this one's got reindeers and snowflakes and gingerbread men, I believe, so I'm popping that one top and bottom, and I'll use another one later on. So now trying to decide which papers to use to mat and layer the photographs. So originally I did look at these ones with black in, although that one is dark green, because it mirrored the black and the multicolours in Johannes's jacket. However, I don't use them in the end. So flipping through quite a lot of 6x6 papers for Christmas themed in that box. So once I'd made my selection of 3, I then trimmed down the photograph, leaving a little bit of a white border all the way around. So here we go, having a go to try and decide which bits of paper to put in which order. And again, it took me quite a while to fathom that out, which one I wanted, and then I decided I'd better have a look at it in conjunction with the papers that were already on the page. And this is where I've decided that actually the black really wasn't going to go, because there was no other black there. So again, using the double-sided tape and the dental tool, I'm going to stick it down firstly onto the red and then onto the green, just measuring the distance I've got around there and trimming it so that it's all even all the way round. Some of you might use a trimmer to do this, and I am hoping that Father Christmas is going to bring me one this year. The Scrap Squad's 12 Days of Christmas challenge has actually finished now. It was running from the 1st to the 12th. and I'm actually recording this on the 15th. However, so far I've only managed days 1 to 3 because work has been a little bit hectic. So hopefully when I finish for Christmas I'll be able to catch up a little bit. So I decided to use one 3x4 coloured photograph and one smaller black and white photograph. It is actually the same picture, but I just wanted to add a second photo there. So just having a look to see where I think the doily might look best. It's been very strange not attending dance classes this year due to COVID, so hopefully once we get all the vaccines sorted out and things like that, we'll be able to go back to actually having proper face-to-face classes. So now I've selected the paper I want to mount the smaller photograph on, so you can see it's a sort of slightly more burgundy, deeper red there, and all I want is a very thin line of it around the photograph, just so that it just pops off the backing paper a little bit there. So the original page called for the use of tags down the left hand side, so I was just sorting some out there. I thought I got more red ones than I had. I do have a lot of green and not very many red, so I had hoped to put 3 red and a couple of green, but I think it ends up being the other way round. So just fiddling around really, just to see what looks good where, which particular shades of green, because none of them are the same. I then decided I didn't like the pink string that was on there because it didn't actually match with anything else on the layout, so I decided to remove all of the string and add something later that matched. So I then decided to trim them off, so I measured them against the space on the layout, and here I am, just trim them to the right size and then making sure they are all roughly the same size because I wanted them all to line up as best as possible. So again, this is speeded up quite a bit because it did take me quite a lot of time to get it just right. So now all 5 are trimmed to the right size, it's time to start embellishing them. So you'll see here that this embellishment that I'm putting on is actually larger in length than need be on that tag, but I am going to trim it off so it fits later, the same with that one. So I've got 2 that have got like little tag things on, and then 3 poinsettias on that one, 3 stars on this one, and the last one, although you can't see it very well, you'll see it later, is a stocking. Unfortunately, some of the bits I'm doing at the bottom of the screen were actually off shot and need to learn how to line the camera up a bit better. So using my T-square here just to line things up, just to get a little bit of a view as to how I want them arranged. So there you can see I'd forgotten that I've only got 2 red and 3 green, so I had to rearrange it. Pop down a strip of double-sided tape all the way from top to bottom, and here I am just sticking them on, again using the T-square just to make sure they're all nicely lined up. Now there is a little bit of a gap with some of them between the tissue paper and the tags, but I'm going to cover that in a minute with some washi tape. So now I'm replacing the cord that I removed with some red and white striped baker's twine. I found a little bit of it in my little Christmas stash, and it just about did what I needed it to do there, with a slight little bit left over for use another time. So tying them all into a bow, and in a minute you'll see I then apply a little bit of glue behind each tag to stick it down, and also to keep the bow tied and in place. So now it's time to stick on the rest of the decorations there. So there's the doily down, here goes the first photograph. We'll move the doily across a little bit, and there goes the photograph, and the little photograph is going on at an angle. Now I'm looking at the washi tape, which really I should have done before sticking the doily down and the photographs, so it means me peeling things up a little bit to get underneath, but you live and learn. Johannes and Nancy are the most beautiful, elegant dancers, and they dance with such feeling, and they are such lovely people too when you get to talk to them. So I found this little word sticker, chipboard sticker that says memories, because obviously it is a memory, and in a minute I'm going to add some other words, but I'm going to do those in a slightly different medium. So now I'm looking at all the different embellishments to see what I might use and where I might use it. So there's some wood veneer, snowflake and holly. So here we go with the other letter I'm going to use. So I'm using embossing liquid in the pen there, and obviously I'm going to use some embossing powder and the heat torch to set that. So the eagle-eyed in you will see in a minute that I've actually misspelt the word Christmas. So in the end I end up having to cut the letters separate and add the R in later. I haven't actually done anything with embossing powders before, so this was a little bit sort of trial and error. I'm not sure I got it 100% right. I think it might take a little bit more practice to get this done, really. I do kind of like the sort of sparkly effect, but I'm not sure it's something that I'm going to use a lot of. And actually maybe I should have drawn those letters out first and then done the embossing liquid over the top, because I couldn't see where I was going with the stencil and they ended up sort of being on top of each other. So again, using the embossing pen on the wood veneer there, and I'm using some green embossing powder on the holly. It's not quite the right shade of green really, but it's all I've got, so it would have to do. And I'm going to use some sort of iridescent white sparkly one on the snowflake, as fitting for snowflakes. So even though I did this on a spare piece of paper and funneled as much of it possible back into the pots, I still was finding bits of the glittery stuff all over my surface for the next few days. Comment below if you like using embossing powders, or if there's something that you don't enjoy using much or are not quite sure how to use. So here I am using the heat tool and suddenly realised why it's called a heat tool. So use that dental stick again to hold it down so I didn't have to get my fingers in the way, because it kept blowing away with the power of the heating tool. So it didn't quite give me the right shade of gold I wanted. It came out more of a rose gold than a gold, so I coloured it in with a gold pen on top as well and blotted that off. So now I'm trying to fit in some of the other embellishments. So here's an old-fashioned Victorian style scrapbook Christmas tree. So I cut it in half because I only needed half of it out there, and I'm going to use half over this side once I can decide where to put it. You'll see it's got little tags where it was attached to other Christmas trees in the sheet. I'm just going to trim those off, and again I apologise that most of that's happening off screen. I need to keep checking where the camera is and learn to work slightly further away from myself. So I think I've decided where that's going to go, so I'm just going to apply some glue and just fit it in on top of the bottom matting layer, but underneath the top matting layer for that picture, just to give a little bit of extra dimension. So here goes with the snowflake and the holly and the words, just placing them around to see where I think they might look best. So again, haven't got the R there, suddenly realised that and end up having to make an R separately. So there's the R that I made separately. I don't think it actually detracts from it too much, and I quite like the higgledy-piggledy look in the end. So there's the word Christmas, and here's the word dance. So the full title is Christmas Dance Memories. So it took me quite a while to decide where I wanted that title, the words Christmas Dance. I'd already put down the word memories, and I fiddled around for quite a length of time, and you'll see that I actually come back to the original plan, which quite often you do in the end. So again, still fiddling around with it, and there we go. That's where I decided I wanted it. Pop in the little wood veneers there. So now I'm going to commit and pop down the paper embossed words. So I've got DA, eventually there'll be dance. The Christmas dance really was quite a highlight of the dance year, and it's a real pity we've not been able to do it this year, but it's really understandable in COVID times when we're not allowed to mix with people from other households and things, and it really isn't worth the risk of spreading it. I think most of us are going to be a little bit rusty with our dancing when we get back to it next year. I know some people have continued online, using online classes, but I found that very difficult with work and other commitments. So I'm just writing in the journaling here, again using the T-square to help me keep it relatively straight. I did have to look up how to spell Johannes's name. It's not a name that I use every day, so I do sometimes have difficulty with spelling of names and things, so good old Google. So almost done here. Again, just checking on spellings. You can see there my phone in the corner. Comment below if you use your phone or a tablet just to check on spellings. So here's the finished item here for you to see in full, and I'm going to show you a few close-ups in a second. So you can see there's quite a lot of embellishment on it, particularly on the tags there, and you can see how uneven some of those letters look in the title, but actually I quite like it in the end. So all that remains is for me to thank you for joining me in a very English craft room, and ask that you would press like and subscribe and have a look at some of my other videos that are available on A Very English Craft Room.